Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests, hurricanes are among the most violent activities in nature. Literally millions of people have lost their lives and trillions of dollars of property damage has been caused throughout the centuries. So it's critically important that we find out what is causing these things. This is Hurricane Haiyan, Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines. Okay, hundreds of billions of dollars, thousands of people losing their lives. I've divided my talk into 4 parts. First, we're going to talk about what is being said about hurricanes in the press, and therefore, what do the public believe? We'll talk about what does observational evidence actually show. We'll talk about what really causes hurricanes. And finally, we'll talk about what should we do. Okay, that's always important, because there's a lot we can do. Now, a couple of definitions to start out. People don't realize that hurricanes are a type of tropical cyclone. Tropical cyclones are quickly rotating storm systems with strong winds and thunderstorms that result in extreme rain. Okay? Now, we actually call tropical cyclones something different depending on where we are on the Earth. Hurricanes are tropical cyclones, but they're in the North Atlantic and northeastern Pacific Ocean. In the northwestern Pacific, they call them typhoons. And as we'll see in a minute, the largest tropical cyclone in history was Typhoon Tip. It was half as big as the continental United States. Okay, that's what a typhoon is. Cyclones are what they call them in the Indian Ocean and the South Pacific. So here's what's being said in the media. This is quite typical. It's a fact. Climate change made Hurricane Harvey more deadly. Okay, we're hearing that sort of thing all the time. And as a result, public opinion polls, here's one that was released just last month. Do you think the severity of recent hurricanes is most likely the result of global climate change? 55% of the public said that in the United States. Only 41% said, it's severe weather, it happens now and then, and of course there was about 9% who didn't know. So let's have a look at the actual data, the actual observational evidence, because nature doesn't care what people think, nature does what it does. Here's an example. Texas, of course, recently was hit by some very strong winds, a lot of damage, that's for sure. This shows the sea surface temperature in the western Gulf of Mexico, which is right beside Texas. Now, according to many media, it's the high temperatures of the earth that warm up the waters that make the storms more violent. You have more Category 3 and above hurricanes. Well, that's not actually happening. The red dots are the years in which Category 3 or above hurricanes actually hit Texas. Okay? And what you can see is whether the temperature is above normal, which is above this line here, or below, you have hurricanes. You have them hitting the coast of Texas continuously, and there doesn't seem to be any trend whether it's warmer or colder. And in fact, it's interesting, the fellow who actually assembled this chart, Roy Spencer, a meteorologist, he said, major hurricanes don't really care whether the Gulf is above or below average temperature. And it's interesting, other scientists are saying the same thing. Very, very different, of course, to what you hear in the press. The Indian Meteorology Department had 2 scientists who just published a paper saying there is a decreasing trend in tropical cyclone number over the North Indian Ocean in recent years, though there's an increase in sea surface temperature. Okay, so the data is not backing it up. Let's look at some of the other data. It turns out that we have what's called a global temperature statistic. It's not really a temperature, it's just a statistic, and this is how it's varied over the years. And what you can see is there was cooling in this time frame, okay, from 1945 to 1977. And interestingly enough, we had more violent hurricanes during that period than we do now. Hurricane Camille hit in 1969. It massacred the coast of Mississippi with a Category 5 hurricane. Hurricane Flora killed 6,000 people in 1963. That's the most number of people in the United States who ever died from a tropical cyclone, except Galveston hurricane, 1900, was during the Little Ice Age, a cold period. Okay, there was almost 12,000 people killed in the Galveston hurricane in 1900. So we're saying, gee, that doesn't seem to match what we're hearing in the press at all, does it? Similarly, typhoons and hurricanes are not getting bigger. 38 years ago was the record. Typhoon Tip hit the coast of Japan. It's half as big as the continental United States. Okay, it's enormous, 2,200 kilometers. Harvey and Irma were certainly dangerous, but they were puny by comparison in size. The same thing is occurring with storm surges. When you have a wind, if you put your hand in a bowl of water and you slowly push your hand to the side, that's what a storm surge is like. It's not like a sudden vertical tidal wave. It's a storm surge where the ocean level rises The record was set in 1899, okay, 14.5 meters in Australia. The second place position was even further back in the record, 1876, 13.6 meters in Bangladesh, and again, it was during a cooling period, okay, a cooling period. We see that all through the record. So, if it's not temperature that's driving hurricanes, especially this year in the Gulf, what is it? Now, it's a very complicated field. I'll tell you, I was pulling my hair out for a whole week trying to understand the Indian scientists that were helping me on this, but I finally boiled it down to these 6 factors. First one is the rotational tendency, or vorticity, that's already in the atmosphere. The second one is too complicated to go into unless you're a scientist. It's basically Coriolis effect. It's pressure gradients that are determined by latitude. The third one, and this is critical, this is really important to understand, it's called wind shear, okay? The levels of the atmosphere don't always move together. They sometimes go in different directions, different speeds, and there's wind shear between them. We'll come back to this, but that's another factor that determines the strength of hurricanes and the number of hurricanes. The ocean thermal energy, as indicated by temperatures to a depth of 60 meters. Now, once the Gulf gets to 26.7 degrees, as we say here, you can increase the temperature all you want. It doesn't matter. You're going to have tropical cyclones if all the factors would wind up. It's kind of like filling up a bucket with water. Once your bucket is full of water, and you keep pouring in more water, it doesn't get any more full, okay? 26.7 is the critical temperature. If it heats higher than that, you don't get more hurricanes. This next one is the rate of change of temperature with altitude, and the 6th one is the relative humidity at the point around 5 kilometers